Welcome back to the Explainer. Today we're doing something really fun. We're stepping right into the shoes of an E3 English learner to practice some reading comprehension together. We're going to break down a brilliant, classic fable from Aesop, The Mosquito and the Lion. So get ready to learn some fantastic new vocabulary and jump right into the story with me as your study partner. Now just think about this question for a second. Can a tiny little bug defeat the mighty king of the jungle, only to be utterly destroyed by a simple, fragile spider web? I mean, it sounds totally crazy, right? But that is exactly the kind of dramatic irony we're exploring today. Let's find out how on earth this actually happens. Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our agenda for today. First, the Mosquito's bold challenge. Then, our first vocab and role play for Act 1. Next, a sudden tragic downfall, followed by our second vocab and role play. Finally, we'll wrap it all up with the golden quote. Section 1. The Mosquito's bold challenge. Act 1 of our fable. Let's set the scene, okay? Imagine the sweltering heat, the absolute silence of the wild, and suddenly, a tiny mosquito decides to confront a massive, terrifying lion. The mosquito flies right up to the lion's face and says, "I am not the least bit afraid of you, nor do I count you stronger than myself. What, after all, is your strength? You scratch with your claws and bite with your teeth, no more than any quarrelsome creature does." Wow! Talk about confidence! This tiny insect is looking at the literal king of beasts and just completely dismissing his power. And you know, the mosquito doesn't just talk a big game. The text tells us that the mosquito darted at the lion and stung him again and again, right around the nose and eyes. The great beast was clawing furiously at his own face. Can you picture that? The lion is literally beating himself up trying to catch this little bug until he was driven to exhaustion and simply gave up the fight. Against all odds, the mosquito actually won. Moving on to Section 2, Vocab and Role Play for Act 1. Let's master the words of the battle. So let's shift gears for a minute and study these words together. We're going to lock in that advanced E3 vocabulary we just saw in the first act. Then, scratch with claws. The mosquito called the lion quarrelsome, which basically means someone who's always ready to argue or fight. Then we have the action phrase dart at. And finally, the result for the lion, driven to exhaustion. These are just fantastic phrases to add to your English toolkit. All right, it is time for your first interactive challenge. Role-play question number 1. You are the mosquito. How do you boldly tell the lion you're stronger? I want you to think back to the text we just read. What was that highly specific, super boastful phrase the mosquito used to declare he was the winner? Go ahead, say it out loud right now. Did you get it? The phrase is, "I dare say I am the mightier of the two." Excellent job if you remembered "I dare say." It's just such a perfectly arrogant way to announce your superiority. You're doing great with this interactive reading. All right, Section 3. A sudden, tragic downfall. Act 2 of our fable. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the dramatic shift. Our tiny hero just defeated the king of the jungle, right? But as we move into the second half of the story, the tone flips completely, from a glorious victory to an absolute disaster. Look at the phrase puffed up with victory. To be puffed up means to be overly proud of a win, which leads to a really dangerous lack of focus. This right here is the emotional core and the absolute turning point of the whole story. The mosquito isn't just happy anymore, he is dangerously arrogant. And this brilliantly captures the irony of the situation. Just look at the stark contrast. On side A, the mosquito has vanquished the mightiest of beasts. He actually took down a lion. But over on side B, because he was so puffed up and just not paying attention, he's destroyed by a wretched little spider. I mean, it's the highest high, instantly followed by the lowest low.
Section 4. Vocab and Roleplay for Act 2. Let's unpack the tragic end.
Let's really cement our understanding of Act 2 by diving into our second vocabulary breakdown. Trumpet one's triumph means to loudly celebrate your win. But he forgot to watch one's course, meaning to actually look where he was going. Because of that, the spider began to close in upon him. He realized he had managed to vanquish or defeat the lion, only to face a wretched, pathetic end, his downfall. Reviewing these English phrases alongside the native translations on screen really reinforces the drama of it all, doesn't it?
Time for Roleplay question number 2. This time, I want you to step into the shoes of the narrator. Think carefully about this. What exactly did the mosquito fail to do because he was so incredibly proud? What was his critical physical mistake?
And the answer is, he failed to watch his course and flew straight into a spider's web. The phrase, failed to watch his course, really highlights the fatal error here. It wasn't that the spider was somehow stronger than the lion. It was simply that the mosquito got arrogant and stopped paying attention to what was right in front of him. Now for our final interactive challenge, Roleplay question number 3. I want you to really get into character for this one. You are the mosquito, and you are hopelessly caught in the sticky web. How do you lament your fate against the spider? Give me your most tragic voice acting right now. I who have vanquished the mightiest of beasts am now to be destroyed by a wretched little spider. Oh man, the absolute despair. Outstanding job completing this interactive roleplay section. Finally, Section 5, the golden quote, the moral of the story. So let's move to the recap and see how this all builds together. We've read the tale, we've practiced the vocabulary, and we've acted out the drama. Here is the narrative arc. First, a tiny mosquito boldly challenged and defeated a mighty lion. But then, the mosquito was puffed up with victory and stopped paying attention. It flew blindly into a spider's web. Ultimately, the conqueror of the lion was vanquished by a wretched bug. And that brings us perfectly to our golden quote, summarizing the entire moral. Pride in victory can bring about a sudden downfall. It's such a powerful reminder for all of us that the exact moment we start thinking we're invincible is often the exact moment we're most vulnerable. Humility is just as important as strength. Thank you so much for joining me in this interactive explainer. Keep practicing those reading skills, stay focused out there, and I'll catch you in our next deep dive.